In 1950, a man walked into a surgeon's office carrying more than just a physical flaw. He carried a lifetime of shame. He believed his face had ruined his life. He avoided mirrors, avoided people, avoided opportunity. He lived quietly, almost invisibly, convinced the world judged him before he ever spoke. The surgeon performed a simple procedure, reshaping his nose. Technically, the transformation was successful, but something strange happened. Weeks passed, and the man still lived the same way. He still avoided eye contact, still hesitated before speaking, still believed he was broken. Physically, he had changed, but internally, nothing had moved. That surgeon was Maxwell Maltz, and what he discovered next would change how millions of people understand confidence, success, and human potential. Because Maltz began noticing a pattern. Some patients experienced dramatic life transformations after surgery. They became confident, social, ambitious. Their entire lives seemed to shift overnight, but others didn't change at all. Same new face, same old life. That's when Maltz realized something profound. It wasn't the face that shaped the future. It was the self-image. And that discovery became the foundation of one of the most powerful personal development books ever written, Psycho-Cybernetics. Because according to Maltz, every human being carries an invisible blueprint, a mental picture of who they believe they are. And whether that picture is accurate or not, the mind works tirelessly to make it true. If you see yourself as confident, you act confidently. If you see yourself as shy, you behave accordingly. If you see yourself as unlucky, you unconsciously create failure. Your self-image becomes your personal ceiling, and most people never realize they're living inside one. Maltz explained that the human brain functions like a guided missile system. Once given a target, it automatically works toward it, adjusting course, correcting mistakes, learning along the way. But here's the problem. Most people unknowingly set the wrong target. They program their minds with failure, doubt, and limitation, often formed during childhood, reinforced by criticism, rejection, and small defeats. You're not smart enough. You're not attractive enough. You're not talented enough. Over time, these voices become internal, and eventually, they become identity. The mind accepts this identity as truth, and once that happens, the brain quietly begins steering life toward it. Missed opportunities, hesitation, fear disguised as logic, self-sabotage disguised as caution, and slowly, the life someone fears becomes the life they live. But Maltz didn't stop at the problem. He discovered something far more
powerful. The self-image can be changed. Not overnight, not by forcing positivity, but by reprogramming the subconscious mind.
the same way the brain learned those beliefs in the first place. Because the subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between imagination and reality. It simply absorbs what it experiences repeatedly. Athletes use this principle. They visualize the perfect shot, the perfect movement, the perfect performance, again and again, and when the moment arrives, the body follows the mental rehearsal. Maltz realized this wasn't limited to sports. It applied to confidence, to communication, to success, to happiness. If someone repeatedly imagines themselves calm, confident, capable, the mind begins to accept it, and once the mind accepts it, behavior follows naturally. No force, no struggle, just alignment. But here's where things get even more fascinating. Maltz discovered that failure itself wasn't the enemy. In fact, failure was part of the brain's natural guidance system, just like a missile adjusts course mid-flight. Humans learn through feedback. Mistakes weren't signs of weakness. They were signals for adjustment. But people with a negative self-image interpreted mistakes differently. Instead of adjusting, they confirmed their fears. See? I knew I'd fail, and the cycle continued. However, those who began reshaping their self-image saw mistakes as temporary. They corrected course. They improved, and slowly, life began changing. Confidence wasn't forced. It emerged. Opportunity didn't need chasing, it appeared. Because when someone changes internally, the external world responds. Maltz called this the success mechanism, an internal system designed to move us toward goals, once we define them clearly. But most people never activate it. They live reacting instead of directing. They doubt instead of imagining. They fear instead of trusting, and their minds follow the only instructions they've been given. Limitation. But what if someone decided to rewrite those instructions? What if someone deliberately created a new mental picture? What if someone started seeing themselves not as they've always been, but as who they could become? Maltz began guiding patients through simple mental exercises, visualization, relaxation, mental rehearsal, and the results were extraordinary. People who once feared speaking became confident communicators. People who avoided opportunity began pursuing dreams. People who felt trapped discovered freedom. Nothing external had changed, only the self-image. And yet, everything changed. If you're enjoying this journey so far, consider subscribing for more powerful stories like this. Because what Maltz uncovered wasn't just psychology. It was transformation. He discovered that human beings are not limited by reality. They're limited by perception. And perception can be reshaped. But here's where the story takes a deeper turn. Because changing self-image isn't just about imagining success. There's something else, something hidden beneath the surface. A force that quietly resists change. A mental habit that pulls people back into old patterns, even when they're trying to grow. Maltz noticed that some people would begin transforming. Then suddenly, sabotage themselves, they'd hesitate again, doubt again, return to old behaviors, almost as if the mind preferred familiarity, even when familiarity meant struggle. Why does this happen? Why do people resist their own growth? Why does the mind cling to the old self, even when a better life is within reach? Maltz discovered the answer. And what he revealed next changes everything. Because the greatest barrier to transformation isn't the world. It's the hidden beliefs buried deep within the subconscious mind. And in part 2, we'll uncover how to break those invisible chains and activate the full power of Psycho-Cybernetics. But the mind doesn't resist change by accident. It resists change because deep down it is trying to protect you. Maxwell Maltz discovered that the subconscious mind is not your enemy. It is your survival system. It is designed to keep you safe, to keep you consistent, to keep you aligned with the person you believe you are. And that's exactly the problem. Because if your self-image was built on fear, rejection, or failure, your mind will quietly guide you back to those familiar patterns, not because it wants you to suffer, but because it believes that's who you are. This is what Maltz called the failure mechanism, a hidden autopilot, programmed by past experiences, shaping present behavior. It whispers hesitation when opportunity appears. It creates doubt when confidence begins to grow. It pulls you back, just as you start moving forward. But here's where Psycho-Cybernetics becomes powerful. Because Maltz didn't just identify the failure mechanism, he revealed something even more important. Every human being also possesses a success mechanism, an inner guidance system designed for achievement, creativity, and growth, and the key to activating it lies in imagination. Maltz discovered that the brain doesn't distinguish between real experiences and vividly imagined ones. When you repeatedly visualize an experience, your mind begins treating it as familiar, and familiarity reduces fear. This is why visualization becomes so powerful. Imagine standing confidently in a room, speaking clearly, feeling calm, breathing steadily. At first, it may feel unnatural, but repeat it. See it clearly. Feel it deeply. The mind begins to accept it, and when the real moment arrives, something remarkable happens. Your body follows the rehearsal. Confidence feels natural because your mind has already been there. Maltz observed this with patients who feared public speaking. Instead of forcing them to speak immediately, he guided them to mentally rehearse success. They imagined walking to the stage, hearing their voice, seeing the audience listening day after day. The fear softened, and eventually, when they stood in front of real people, they performed with surprising calm. Nothing magical had happened. They simply reprogrammed their self-image. But visualization alone wasn't enough. Maltz also emphasized relaxation because tension blocks the success mechanism. When people feel anxious, their minds narrow, creativity disappears, decisions become reactive, fear takes control. But when the mind relaxes, clarity returns, solutions emerge, opportunities become visible. This is why Maltz encouraged moments of calm reflection, not forced thinking, but quiet awareness. Because the brain, like a guided system, continues working even when you're not consciously trying. Sometimes the best solutions appear when you stop pushing, when you step back, when you trust the process. And as people began combining visualization with relaxation, transformation accelerated. Maltz described individuals who spent years believing they were shy, suddenly becoming comfortable in conversation. Others who believed they were unlucky began recognizing opportunities everywhere. People who felt stuck discovered momentum. Their external world hadn't changed, their internal image had, and once that shifted, everything else followed. But the most profound insight Maltz revealed was this: you don't need to be perfect to succeed. In fact, perfection is often the enemy of growth. Many people hesitate because they fear mistakes. They delay action, waiting until they feel ready, waiting until they feel confident. But Maltz argued that confidence doesn't come before action. It comes after. Every attempt, even imperfect ones, feeds the success mechanism. Each small win builds momentum. Each experience reshapes identity. Slowly, the self-image evolves, and once someone begins seeing themselves as capable, the transformation becomes unstoppable. Maltz also introduced a powerful idea that human beings are meant to live creatively, not reactively. Instead of being controlled by past experiences, you can consciously choose your future identity. Who do you want to become? Calm, confident, focused, successful? Once you define it, the mind begins working toward it like a guided missile, adjusting course, learning, improving. But there's a quiet beauty in this process, because transformation doesn't require dramatic change. It begins subtly. A new thought, a new decision, a small moment of courage. And over time, these moments accumulate. Maltz described people who once felt invisible, slowly stepping into leadership. Others who feared failure, starting new ventures. Individuals burdened by self-doubt, discovering inner peace. Their lives didn't transform overnight, but they changed direction, and direction changes destiny. As the success mechanism strengthens, something else begins to happen. Fear loses its grip, mistakes lose their sting, and life begins to feel less like survival and more like creation. Because once someone realizes they are not trapped by their past, a new world opens. Possibilities expand. Confidence grows quietly, and the self-image, once limited, becomes limitless. This is the essence of Psycho-Cybernetics. You are not defined by your past. You are guided by the image you hold of yourself. Change that image, and you change your life. Not through force, not through struggle, but through alignment. Because when your inner world shifts, your outer world follows. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join this growing community of people transforming their lives. And remember this: you don't need to become someone else to succeed. You simply need to Become the person you already have the potential to be. Because the life you're searching for has been waiting inside you all along. If this journey sparked something inside you, then you're already closer to the person you're meant to become. Here, at the Essence of Audiobooks, we believe that a single idea can change a life, and the right story can change your direction forever. If you found value in this story, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the Essence of Audiobooks, and join a growing community of thinkers, dreamers, and lifelong learners. Your support helps us bring more powerful ideas, deeper insights, and life-changing stories to people around the world. And if this message resonated with you, share in the comments one word that describes the person you're becoming, because transformation begins with awareness, and awareness begins right here. Welcome to the Essence of Audiobooks, where ideas shape identity and stories transform lives.